We're now into the real thick of the Academy Awards season here with the SAG Awards being announced tomorrow morning. We're going to have live reactions for that. And also, we did not have time up until now really to get into the BAFTA long list. So I do want to cover that first here before we get into the final SAG nomination predictions. So we'll go ahead and start here with the BAFTA long list. Just a couple things to say about that here and there. We'll kind of run down the categories here. Not so much like the British categories, like Outstanding British Film, but some of the other ones we will. Okay. So let's start with Best Film Overall. They have 10 films shortlisted, and they include All of Us Strangers, Anatomy of a Fall, Barbie, The Holdovers, Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro, Oppenheimer, Past Lives, Poor Things, and The Zone of Interest. So from the films that are in the mix here at the Oscars, I think really the only couple that were missing, or arguably three that were missing, were May December, which I didn't particularly think was going to be like a strong BAFTA player here. Color Purple, which is another one that, you know, if it had made the list, I think that would have been really at this point a sign of strength for it, since it wasn't up for like Best Film, Comedy Musical at the Globes, and you know, landed enough spots, I think, with Critics' Choice, but, you know, arguably could have done better. And the only other one would be, of course, American Fiction. And American Fiction, just given the subject matter, I think that's one that I didn't fall over shock when BAFTA looked it over there on the long list. All of Us Strangers, though, to keep that one in the discussion, I don't think it's totally unexpected, just given the film setting and the filmmakers behind it. And really, otherwise, it's like all the other 9 films are all really in the hunt for Best Picture. So there's no, you know, out of left field pick here for Best Film by any means here. Let's see. So next up, we'll go with film not in the English language. Nominees here are 20 Days in Maripol, Anatomy of a Fall, The Boy and the Heron, The Eight Mountains, Fallen Leaves, Past Lives, Society of the Snow, The Taste of Things, The Teacher's Lounge, and The Zone of Interest. So, Boy and the Heron, Eight Mountains, and Past Lives, and Anatomy of a Fall. So there's 10 films listed here total. 4 of those are not going to be eligible for the international feature category at the Oscars. And of those, I think Perfect Days was the only one that was not shortlisted here, and I haven't looked into it to see if it maybe just didn't qualify for BAFTA this year. That does happen from time to time, where you do have a film that's, you know, eligible for the Oscars one year is not eligible for BAFTA until the following year, just due to the release schedule there. And, you know, there has been years where we're like, oh, like Parasite, for example, I had like 3 or 4 sources that told me that in 2019 it was not going to be eligible because it had not screened in time. Evidently, that information, all 4 sources were dead wrong, because it had qualified, you know, with a couple screenings in the greater UK area. So it's always kind of tough. But anyways, but seeing like the Teacher's Lounge, which I think not everyone is picking for the Oscars, to see that make the list of 10 is a you know, fairly decent sign for that film. If it had missed there, then it would have been tougher to you know, to say that that one's going to make it. Io Capitano also is not on this list, but again, we'll see if that's maybe just a qualification thing. But if it doesn't, you know, since it's not going to end up among the BAFTA nominees, one of the 5 films nominated there, yeah, then I think, yeah, then I think it's a thing where, yeah, yeah, it could maybe drop off a couple other people's predictions if it's not, you know, on there already. Let's see here. Let's go ahead. I can cover the documentary category here as well. And yeah, I'm just going by the BAFTA website here. I am seeing a lot of these categories are going back to 5 nominees in each category this year, which I don't know. I don't mind it being 6. It has been 6 for like the acting categories and directing in the last few years here at BAFTA, and then other categories have been 5. I like a little more even-handedness. You know, I don't love, you know, like 6 nominees here, 8 nominees here, 10 nominees here, 15 here for, like, you know, best internet or best British film or whatever. It's like I don't love that they're jumping all over the place. But anyways, in the documentary category, again, we're going to get I believe 5 nominees here. I'm not seeing the number yet. Where does it say it in here? Yeah, two. Yeah, two. I'll just read the thing here because it was kind of confusing me at first. All BAFTA film voting members were invited to join an opt-in chapter to determine the long list, of which the top 2 are nominated. So, okay, so whoever opted in on the documentaries here, the ones that get the top 2 votes are automatically in, and then a jury will select the remaining 3 nominees. So, okay. Anyways, we have 20 Days in Maripol, American Symphony, Beyond Utopia, The Deepest Breath, High and Low, John Gialino, or Galliano, something like that. Little Richard, I Am Everything, Mad About the Boy, the Noel Coward story, The Pigeon Tunnel, Still, Michael J. Fox movie, and Wham, as in, I believe, the artists. So I've got a couple here that, again, depending on eligibility rules, are not going to end up at BAFTA. That's Four Daughters and The Eternal Memory. Otherwise, the other 3 I have, American Symphony, Maripol, and Beyond Utopia, are all in here. Again, I'm still not going to fall for that trap with the Michael J. Fox thing. I'm just not going to fall for it. Then animated feature, this year they have 4 nominees, which I believe I said 3 last time. I think it has actually been 4 here the last couple of years, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, so we have 4 films that will be nominated of these 8, and they are The Boy and the Heron, Chicken Run, Dawn of the Nugget, Elemental, Nimona, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, Super Mario Brothers movie, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and Wish. And yeah, I think again, The Peasants is the one I have in at the Oscars that has just continued to struggle here. And just the fact that it's still really not showing up in too many places here, yeah, maybe that one is going to miss the boat. I just felt like with the animation style, the fact that it is the crew that made Loving Vincent, it was one I threw in kind of later in the season. I didn't have it in right away, but I don't know, maybe my first instinct was right there. Maybe I should flop that one out for something else. But let's see. Otherwise, the other 4 I have are in, and I'm starting to lean more towards Super Mario Brothers, putting that one back in. Wish, even though it's doing pretty well at the international box office, and actually I think is possibly going to, again, like Elemental did earlier in the summer, possibly become a profitable film for Disney. A large part of that is going to be due to the international markets. Okay, so I'm just going to read the thing here for the directing category. So the directing category has been kind of controversial here the last few years, because there was at points certain rules where a certain number of nominees had to be male, certain nominees had to be female, and it arguably kept out more deserving nominees just because of the whole gender thing. So I'm just going to read it here just so it's clear. 16 films advance in the directing category, which are the ones we're going to shortlist here in a minute. Members of the directing chapter vote for their top 16 to determine the long list, of which the top female and male directors, or those who identify as non-binary, will be longlisted to a max of 11, with the female-male gender parity upheld, and of which the top 2 are nominated regardless of gender. So, in other words, okay, again, kind of like the documentary category, 2 are going to get in no matter what. So, presumably, let's just say for presumption's sake here, it's Christopher Nolan for Oppenheimer because he's on the list. And, I don't know, let's say, just for fun, that second one is... Shit, let's go for the moon here. Justine Triet for Anatomy of a Fall. Let's just say it's those 2. Those 2 are in no matter what. From there, a long-listed jury selects the final placings of the next 8 placed female, male, and non-binary directors placed within this voting results range. A nominating jury selects 4 directors from the long list to make up a nominee list of 6 directors. So in other words, yes, so we do have the, it's basically like goes from 16 to 11 to 2 in and 8 spots left. Of those 8, half will be eliminated. I don't know if I'm exactly following all of this exactly so far, but here we go. The last part here is nominating jury selects 4 directors from the long list to make up a nominee list of 6 directors. The final round, all voting members will determine the winning film, or winning directing achievement, I guess, in this case. So, yeah. So I don't know. I'm still not 100% sure how to predict this, but you got Anatomy of a Fall, All of Us Strangers, American Fiction, Barbie, The Holdovers, How to Have Sex, Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro, Oppenheimer, Past Lives, Poor Things, Priscilla, Rye Lane, Saltburn, Scrapper, and The Zone of Interest were the 16 films that got in. And I guess at this rate, I mean, I can't think off the top of my head here. I don't think any of those films are ones that were all like, there's not a film missing here that we all thought was like a huge, huge player for director. A couple people are going on some kind of outside tracks, going with like a Todd Haynes or Ava DuVernay for Origin, or even Miyazaki for Boy and the Heron. So none of those are on here. But yeah, I think this could be arguably the first place we do see Justine Triet get in, especially Anatomy of a Fall with those surprise Globe wins, or at least the surprise Globe win for screenplay. And again, just the way that one has been tracking recently, it's usually when it's up head to head against like something like Zone of Interest, which we all presume is going to be the winner there in international feature at the Oscars at the end of the day. Anatomy of Fall is usually beating it out. So, I don't think that means, like, for example, here at BAFTA, I don't think that means, like, Jonathan Glazer is, like, totally out of it. He could very easily be nominated alongside Justine Triet, and then you get, fill in the rest there as he will. But, yeah, so I don't think this short list necessarily tells us anything as of yet, because we could see, like, the director of How to Have Sex, I believe, was a female director. So, again, from the gist of it here, they do want to get at least one female director in there, and yeah, I think it's that's how it's going to go down at least. So we'll see. Okay, so next up is original screenplay. 10 films listed here, and this will get whittled down to 5, basically. I think it doesn't really list. It's weird because some of these categories they're listing how many are going to get in, but other ones they're not. Like this one doesn't say how many it's going to get down to, but I'm guessing it's 5 because that's how it's been the last couple of years here. Okay, and the 10 nominees for original screenplay are Air, Anatomy of a Fall, Barbie will contend an original over here at BAFTA, Holdovers, How to Have Sex, Maestro, May December, Past Lives, Rye Lane, and Saltburn. And obviously, as it's been talked about, by quite a few others as well, Barbie is going to be an adapted when we get to the Oscars. It was announced later that same day, Origin, the one from Ava DuVernay, is also going to be an adapted. That was originally contending in original screenplay. And really, I think the only one that I think some people have picked for original that's not included is Rustin. And a couple like Boy and the Heron have picked that one out if they think it's also going to get into director, for example. So no major surprises here. On the adapted side, the 10 selected are All of Us Strangers, American Fiction, Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, Dumb Money, The Killer, Killers of the Flower Moon, Oppenheimer, Poor Things, Wonka, and The Zone of Interest. So with this category, yeah, I think all the ones I have in right now, they're all in. I don't think a lot of people were still talking about like Color Purple or Spider-Man in this category. Neither of them are on the short list here. So I don't think I don't think there's way too many surprises there. We're going to get into the acting categories next, starting with lead actress. This will come down to 6 nominees. And it's basically... Again, we've got 10 here. The top 3 get in automatically. The next 3 are decided after a kind of second round of voting. Kind of somewhat similar to some of the other categories we've mentioned. But anyways, the 10 here are Annette Bening for Naiad. Or it is 10, right? Or is it 9? Hang on. Okay, yeah, my eyes deceived me. It's 10. Annette Bening for Naiad. Carey Mulligan, Maestro. Emma Stone for Poor Things. Fantasia Barrino for The Color Purple. Greta Lee for Past Lives, Lily Gladstone for Killers of the Flower Moon, Margot Robbie for Barbie, Mia McKenna Bruce for How to Have Sex, Sandra Hüller for Anatomy of a Fall, and Vivian Oparah for Rye Lane. And if I flip over to my actress predictions right now, I don't think there's anybody here who's like a, you know, like, why are they missing? Outside of arguably like Natalie Portman. And, you know, overall, when we get to it here, May December is really, again, one that, you know, some had felt was kind of gaining steam after like the Globe nominations and quite a few nominations at Critics' Choice. Since then, it has lost a little steam. So, yeah, Natalie Portman, I don't think that's like, again, a shock that she's not on this list, but she's missing. Also, a few people have been believing in Helen Mirren since she's kind of an Academy favorite and everything, because she had Golda out. That didn't even make the BAFTA long list here, so if that one had gotten in, I think we would have seen a couple people argue for her, but because she's not, yeah, that's the way that's going to go. In lead actor, our 10 that'll get shortlisted to 6 are Andrew Scott, All of Us Strangers, Barry Keoghan for Saltburn, Bradley Cooper for Maestro, Cillian Murphy for Oppenheimer, Coleman Domingo for Rustin, George McKay for Femme, Jeffrey Wright for American Fiction, Leonardo DiCaprio, Killers of the Flower Moon, Paul Giamatti for The Holdovers, and T.U. for Past Lives. And I'm glad to see T.U. finally being recognized here, because Greta Lee is good in the movie, don't get me wrong, and she's maybe the one that will get in of the acting nominee possibilities there, unless John Magaro also surprises us in supporting actor. But T.U. he's almost, I would argue he's just as good. Some would argue he's just as good as Greta Lee in it, and yet he's just almost been completely sidestepped in this whole race, which is disappointing. Anyways, I guess Joaquin Phoenix seemed to be like a little bit of a, you know, outside, you know, contender. Anyways, the fact that he's not here, I think, does feel like kind of a nail in the coffin for that one. Yeah, otherwise, you know, I'd heard a couple people still talking about maybe Adam Driver, but yeah, again, nothing that's making me lose sleep here in this category. Moving over to supporting actress, the 10 that are longlisted here are America Ferrera for Barbie, Cara Jade Myers, or is it Cara? I've heard both, for Killers of the Flower Moon, Claire Foy for All of Us Strangers, Danielle Brooks for The Color Purple, Divine Joy Randolph for The Holdovers, Emily Blunt for for Oppenheimer, Jodie Foster for Naiad, Julianne Moore for May December, Rosamund Pike for Saltburn, and Sandra Hüller for The Zone of Interest. So here, boy, America Ferrera is kind of sticking around, isn't she? I thought about it today, because I do have, you know, like I said, we've got the final SAG nomination predictions still to come up here in this video, but I was seriously like this close to like trying to figure out, okay, who would I knock out in favor of America Ferrera for SAG tomorrow? Because I just, boy, it's like not only is the popularity of the Barbie film, you've also got like her moment with Kevin Costner on the stage there, where it's like they basically talked about her monologue, which is obviously her big kind of Oscar clip type scene in the film. Man, just you know, it's reminiscent, a little reminiscent, not the exact same. Remember last year around this time when people were starting to shout out, what's her name? Andrea Riseborough? And they were just mentioning her. They weren't mentioning her film, but they were mentioning her. And everybody's kind of like, okay, what's that about? And then it's like, as everyone dug into it a little bit, the curious ones dug into it, myself included eventually, we're like, oh, so that's her, you know, that's somebody shouting out for her. Very, very similar thing here. So I was, you know, I'm kind of looking at it, I'm like, I don't know. Maybe down the road I might flop out like somebody like Penelope Cruz, who's not shortlisted here, you know, for her. Otherwise, Taraji P. Henson again misses here, and I feel like, again, all the focus now on any acting nominees from Color Purple, seemingly not only in this category but across the board, it's centered on Danielle Brooks. I think Danielle Brooks has kind of become the one to get in. You know, that's the one they got to push all their chips in on. Warner Brothers, that is, in this category. Let's see, Rosamund Pike getting in, you know, on the short list here, still alive. I could very easily see her nabbing a spot here, since it's 6 nominees. Even Sandra Hüller, good possibility there as well. She could be a double nominee here. Yeah, and then, yeah, Viola Davis, I'll tell you what, we'll get to SAG, because I've had her in for SAG. I'll tell you what I did with her. But, yeah, I think at the Oscars, it really does feel like it's, you know, feels like it's kind of, again, it's going to be really tough. And I remember, this is a Viola Davis that was in, you know, like last year for The Woman King, got in everywhere and still couldn't make the Oscar list. So if she's already struggling just to make, you know, the long list here at BAFTA to begin with, you know, I don't think so. I don't think that's going to happen. So that's that one. For supporting actor, your 10 long list nominees here are Anthony Hopkins for One Life, Ben Whishaw for Passages, Dominic Sessa for The Holdovers, Jacob Elordi for Saltburn, Jamie Bell for All of Us Strangers, Mark Ruffalo for Poor Things, Paul Mescal for All of Us Strangers, Robert De Niro for Killers of the Flower Moon, Robert Downey Jr. for Oppenheimer, and Ryan Gosling for Barbie. So there's 2 that are in the mix here, arguably, or you could argue 3 that are in the mix here that were not included on the BAFTA long list. Where the hell is Charles Melton at? This was the biggest surprise I had when I finally got to the list here. I was like, where's Charles Melton at? I'm like, May December had a couple nods beforehand with like Julianne Moore in screenplay, but nothing for him? That was very surprising. Also, Willem Dafoe? Willem Dafoe's not on there? That's weird. And then the other one's Sterling K. Brown for American Fiction. He got into the Critics' Choice. I originally had him at the Globes, but that didn't pan out. Boy, I think American Fiction, if it was going to come on strong and potentially, keep playing for, more consideration in the Best Picture category, another acting nomination definitely would help. But I feel like with this one, the fact that one did come out kind of late, it's still in fairly limited release. And it's missing from the at least this category. And a couple other key categories, including Best Film. That's not boding well for that film, at least for SAG and a couple other things. I think it'll still have enough in the tank there to get Best Picture, but that one, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Any presence it can have from SAG tomorrow can only help, but in the meantime, I think that one, on the Best Picture lineup, I think it's still in. It's definitely still in for mine, but it's maybe not as high as it was before. Otherwise, like All of Us Strangers getting 2, with Paul Mescal and Jamie Bell there. Yeah, I feel like probably one of them would get in. Yeah, so we'll see. The casting category, this one I believe will come down to 5 nominees, and they will come from these 10 films: All of Us Strangers, Anatomy of a Fall, Barbie, The Holdovers, How to Have Sex, Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro, Oppenheimer, Saltburn, and Scrapper. This is one of the few places that Poor Things didn't get in, which is a little strange, but because it seemingly got into every other category it could, except for again maybe a mention for Willem Dafoe. This casting category is still relatively new, so I haven't totally I don't think all of us have totally scoped it out yet for how it works, because sometimes they go with really small casts, other times they'll go with bigger casts. So yeah. Let's see, we'll get into some of the tech categories now. Cinematography, 10 nominees here are Barbie, The Creator, Ferrari, Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro, Napoleon, Oppenheimer, Poor Things, Saltburn, and The Zone of Interest. I think with this one, The Killer missing here really doesn't help, because that felt like a kind of a long shot one that I was thinking of, taking one out and putting that one in. Color Purple is not on here, which I've had that one for a while, and I'm thinking I'm going to have to start pulling that one, at least from this list. I already did pull it, by the way, from the costume designers list, because that didn't even make the Costume Designers Guild. So yeah, I feel like that one is probably not going to do as well in the tech categories as I originally thought. Let's see. Otherwise, The Creator's a nice, interesting choice to put on there. But and Napoleon too. I really hadn't heard way too many people talking about that one for cinematography. In costume design, your 10 here are Asteroid City, Barbie, Ferrari, Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro, Napoleon, Oppenheimer, Poor Things, Saltburn, and Wonka. And I don't think, other than maybe Color Purple, there's really not too many missing from that one. The fact that Oppenheimer did get in, yep, I've had that one for a while, so I'm glad I'm sticking to my guns on that one. Let's see, otherwise Priscilla, a few people like that one in this category. That not making the list is not great. And then Chevalier missed the Guild and missed the long listers, so I think anybody that had Chevalier, go ahead and get that one out. It's probably not happening. Came out too early. In the film editing, you have All of Us Strangers, Anatomy of a Fall, Barbie, Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro, Mission Impossible, Dead Reckoning, Oppenheimer, Poor Things, Saltburn, and The Zone of Interest. So here, I've had The Holdovers for quite a while, and I still contend if If Alexander Payne's going to make it into director, I think that's a good sign for like the holdovers getting in for film editing. And I feel like that those two kind of cross over more often than we think. I think back to like 2020, the Trial of Chicago 7. We saw that one, or no, the cinematography. I think that was one I was thinking. Cinematography and editing it got in for, but it missed for director. With holdovers, I have it missing cinematography, but I have it getting in for editing and director. Some of these key tech categories and director sometimes do line up. Not always like a perfect 5 for 5 across all the categories, of course, but sometimes it's a good indicator there. Anyway, so this one, I feel like, the holdovers is the big one I have missing here that did not get listed. Seeing Anatomy of a Fall on there, I did have that one actually predicted for a while, and I might have to switch and put that one back in now. I'm starting to think about it. Maestro getting on there, that was one I wasn't always a favorite, but I have that one in. I can see Barbie still missing there. Ferrari is one that I had pegged for a while, and I think when we get to the editing guild, the ASAD guild, when they announce their nominees, I'll have to see who they put in for drama. But I'm presuming on their end it's going to be like Oppenheimer, Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro, probably Anatomy of a Fall, and then that fifth slot will either be like The Killer or Napoleon, Ferrari, maybe even Past Lives, something like that. We'll have to see, but I'll just see who they whittle it down to there. A Zone of Interest, that getting in is a good sign for that one, so I don't think that one's totally out of the conversation yet for editing either. But Air was an interesting one that people talk about. It got the nomination at Critics' Choice, but I feel like that one, again, it's not like top of mind for a lot of people. So I feel like the only other one, like original screenplay, feels more like a place for that one. Makeup and hairstyling, the 10 nominees here the 5 nominees will be whittled down from these 10 choices. Barbie, which we know did not make the shortlist. Ferrari, Golda, Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro, Napoleon, Oppenheimer, Poor Things, Priscilla, and Wonka. So, so Barbie did not make the shortlist, Wonka did not make the shortlist, and Priscilla did not make the shortlist. Instead, we've got Society of the Snow, Beau is Afraid, and Last Voyage of the Demeter, I believe. All the rest of them line up. And ultimately, I think as long as they don't, I say this just in jest, but throw away one of their nominees by putting in Barbie, for example, or one of those that does not make the short list, I think that's going to help us determine the Oscar list, or maybe include or toss out one of the bottom ones there, depending on how the voting comes out. What's next here? Original score. The 10 we'll select from here are American Fiction, Barbie, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, Killers of the Flower Moon, Napoleon, Oppenheimer, Poor Things, Saltburn, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, and Wonka. Notice a lot of Napoleon on this list. Napoleon actually did pretty well here with the BAFTA voters, but that one is not on the short list for the Oscars, though. And surprisingly, neither is Elemental, which did make the list for animated features, so we know it was eligible, but Thomas Newman, again, missing here. That really does not help him. Really does not help him at the end of the day for the Oscar nomination possibility. Color Purple is also not on here. That was on the short list. Let's see here. I don't think Saltburn made it, did it? No, Saltburn's on here for the short list as well. Okay. Wonka did not make it. Again, Wonka, just the setting of the film and stuff, it makes a little more sense for that one to do better at BAFTA, for example. Otherwise, I don't think we have way too much else to discuss with that one. Production design is up next, and the 10 here are Asteroid City, Barbie, Ferrari, Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro, Napoleon, Oppenheimer, Poor Things, Wonka, and the Zone of Interest. Here, I don't think... again, Color Purple really, really struggling in these BAFTA long lists here. I do have that one still in for the Oscar nomination, but it's in my 5th place spot here. I don't know if Ferrari is going to be enough to get in for production design at the Oscars, and a nomination here actually would kind of surprise me at BAFTA. But no, I'd say something like Wonka is a more sure bet here at BAFTA. Zone of Interest is an interesting one. We could see that one get in and possibly carry over to the Oscars. Otherwise, I feel like Asteroid City, that could be a place to nominate the film. But again, Wes Anderson, 0 nominations for The French Dispatch, even though that one kind of popped up once in a while, at least, in a lot of our predetermining precursor awards. So, yeah, we'll see. Visual effects is up next. And the 10 long listed here are Barbie, The Creator, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Indiana Jones, Mission Impossible, Napoleon, Oppenheimer, Poor Things, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, and Wonka. So we all know Oppenheimer is not one of the 10 that were selected for the Oscars. Wonka is also not on there. Let's see. Guardians is, and Barbie is not. So we know... name them again. Barbie, Oppenheimer, and Wonka we know are not going to carry over. Otherwise, yeah, I feel like that's, yeah, we'll see what they pick, but that's about it. And then I think the last one we'll cover here today is the sound category. That's the last one I have alphabetically here. Barbie, Ferrari, Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro, Mission Impossible, Napoleon, Oppenheimer, Poor Things, Wonka, and the Zone of Interest. Once again, Zone of Interest and Wonka popping up quite a bit here. And Napoleon still is, too. So for this one, I had The Killer listed here. That was kind of my long shot prediction, kind of out there prediction. But really, the only one The Killer got shortlisted in here at BAFTA, I want to double check, was Adapted Screenplay. That's the one place it showed up. Not for cinematography, not for sound, not for anything else.